Thank you and welcome. I can see everyone's interested in the gut. And we're going to go on a very exciting journey this afternoon. It's a journey through our gastrointestinal tract. Starts at the mouth, ends at the other end. It's about 10 metres long. I just had to do a readjustment. I've just been in America and I can't say metre, I have to say yards. Do you know dogs have a gastrointestinal tract of 1 metre long? Do you know they have 10 times the hydrochloric acid that we do? And that's why they can get away with eating some of those disgusting things they sometimes eat, which would kill us. It's a very interesting journey, is the journey through the gastrointestinal tract. And Proverbs 14 verse 6 says, "Knowledge is easy to him that understands." I want to give you an understanding of your gastrointestinal tract today, because once you have an understanding of it, then you know how to treat it. I'm against child abuse, I'm against animal abuse, and I'm against gut abuse. And a lot of people are harming their gut, not even realising that they are. And that's why in that little book, Ministry of Healing, one of my favourite books, the author says the only hope of better things on the planet Earth is the education of people in right principles. And that's why I do what I do, because so many people are sick through ignorance. It's like kicking a dog and not even realising it's hurting the dog, which is crazy. And we can't see the gut, but I think it does speak to us. But a lot of people don't know how to interpret what the gut is saying to them. So what I'd like to do, as I begin, I'd like to ask the creator of this gut to teach us. Father, thank you so much for our gut. Thank you so much for the knowledge and the wisdom on how to treat it. Give us understanding, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So let us begin. We begin with the mouth. And the mouth is the only place we have say over on the whole of our gastrointestinal tract. We have say over what goes in. We have say over whether it was junk or organic, very nourishing food. We're the ones that have say. I'm the master of my destiny. It's my God-given right to choose what I do and what I don't do to my body. But many people are sick because they don't realise that some of the things they're doing are not right or will not help their gut. So number one, we have say over what goes in. We have say over how much goes in. Is it 3 platefuls of food or half a plateful of food? We have say over how long it's in our mouth. Are you doing chew, swallow, or are you chewing? Remember the steam train? Chew. It's a good idea to put the knife and fork down between mouthfuls, because there's no teeth in the stomach. What doesn't get chewed in the mouth doesn't get chewed anywhere. Even nuts, if you don't chew nuts to a cream, those little bits that come out, the nutrients that are in there, they're going to end up in the toilet. We're such a fast society today that many people don't take time to chew. Number 4, we have say how often it goes in. Is it going in every half hour, every 2 hours? Or is it just going with meal times and then there's a break between? And you'll find out when we get down to the stomach that that's very important. And the 5th one is we have say over environment of entry. Is it a stressful situation or it is a peaceful situation? Because being in a peaceful situation when we eat, it actually encourages the digestive juices to run without hindrance. Emotions can interfere with the release of our digestive enzymes. I'm sure we've all had experience where maybe we've been halfway through a meal, we've got bad news, we don't feel like finishing our meal, do we? Because those emotions can cut the release of the enzymes. Mouth is where we chew, and these are the only exposed bones in our body, is our teeth. And our skin, our teeth, our hair, it's all an illustration of the nutritional status of our body. It's one thing to eat good food, but as you'll see today, the next thing is to guarantee that we're breaking down that food properly, because our gastrointestinal tract is a hollow tube, and it's anything that goes in there is not part of us until it gets out of the gut and into the blood. The Bible says in Leviticus 17:11 that the life of the flesh is in the blood. And the reason why the blood is the life is it carries oxygen, it carries nutrients, it carries water, and it carries away waste. And we are the ones that choose the nutritional status of our food so that our blood has got great nutrients to nourish every single part of our body. A lady said to me one day, she said, "I'm so sorry to tell you this, Barbara, but my little 10-month-old girl ate a bit of dog poo." She was so embarrassed to even tell me. And I said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It'll go in one end and come out the other." It's a hollow tube. Another lady said to me, "My little boy's got a cold and he keeps snorting and swallowing all the mucus." I said, "Don't worry, it goes in one end and it comes out the other." So it's a hollow tube. And the process that breaks the food that we eat down into microscopic little particles so they can be absorbed into the blood is a fascinating process, is what we're going to look at today. So you can eat the best organic food on the planet, but if your gut's not breaking it down properly, you're not going to access the nutrients that our body needs. So we begin with the mouth. And the pH in the mouth is alkaline. There are two enzymes that are released in the mouth. Most people don't realise digestion actually begins in the mouth. In one way, the teeth are beginning it just by chewing. You see, the more you chew your food, the smaller the surface area, so the easier it is. Well, sorry, I'll say that again. The more we chew our food, the smaller the particles, so the larger the surface area for our enzymes to work on as we go down our gastrointestinal tract. And one enzyme that's released, and it's released from under the tongue, it's called lingual lipase. Lingual lipase is released from the sublingual gland just under the tongue. And lingual lipase is an enzyme that breaks down saturated fat. Now, we've heard a lot of bad things about saturated fat, is that right? Don't eat saturated fat, it'll give you heart disease. Do you know that's never been proven? And when Captain Cook landed on the South Pacific Islands, maybe yours was one of them, he was confronted with the most magnificent specimens of humanity he'd ever seen. The women were beautiful. He had a bit of trouble with his men. The men were strong, agile, perfect teeth, perfect hair. And you know what they ate every meal? Especially in the Fiji, Samoan, Solomon Islands, coconut oil. And when he came onto the South Pacific Islands, there was no heart disease. When did heart disease begin? With the Industrial Revolution. Did you know that? It's important to know your history. What happened with the Industrial Revolution? They started to extract oils from hard seeds. So when you see those oils in the supermarket in clear plastic bottles, soy oil, peanut oil, safflower oil, don't touch them, because they've been extracted with high heat and chemicals. They're dangerous oils. And they will contribute to heart disease by breaking down the little endothelium cells that line the arteries. Then the liver has to respond by sending cholesterol to plug up the damage. We'll look at that a little bit in our liver lecture, which is next. So the best oils are coconut oil and olive oil. Why? Now, if I don't give you enough whys, please remind me, because we must always know, because how can we make decisions if we don't understand why? Coconut oil and olive oil have been used for centuries, so they've stood the test of time. And coconut oil and olive oil are two oils that are extracted from the flesh of the plant. So women have been able to do it even in their kitchens. No, I don't extract my own olive oil. I buy Australian extra virgin first cold pressed olive oils. But it's not a saturated fat. The coconut is a saturated fat. Butter is a saturated fat. And I know New Zealanders have just been raised on dairy. And there's a huge difference, in fact, as far as the east is from the west, to organic raw to the supermarket milk. You know, you give a newborn baby calf the supermarket milk, it will die. So I acknowledge that. But myself, I'm a fifth generation Australian and I just can't handle dairy, so I don't eat it at all. I eat a plant-based diet. But it's very difficult to get organic raw today, but definitely there is a difference. So saturated fat is butter, saturated fat is coconut oil, palm oil. Is there a problem with palm oil? Nutritionally not. It's an ethical issue because they are mowing down the rainforest to grow palm trees to make chocolate because coconut oil, it gives too much of a strong flavour to chocolate, so they grow the palm. But nutritionally, the saturated fat is an excellent fat because the breakdown begins in the mouth, under the sublingual gland release, which is lingual lipase. The other enzymes that released in the mouth is a salivary amylase called ptyalin. And ptyalin is an enzyme that breaks down starch. Ptyalin is not present, well, it's barely present in a baby's mouth until the molars come. And so babies should not eat any starch till the molars are through. And what are mothers told to give their babies at 4 to 6 months of age? Rice cereal. What's rice cereal? Pure starch. Psalm 146 verse 3 says, "Put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help." Who are the princes? They're the authorities in the field. Question, question, question. Did you know that our geniuses from time past, Galileo, Einstein, Rembrandt, Mozart, do you know they didn't eat food till they were nearly 2? Did it make them dumb? Can you see that we're to question? We're to question at every step. And we have history. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And it's only in the last 80 years that mothers are being told to give their babies this cereal at a young age. It's a crazy suggestion because there's no ptyalin in the mouth till the molars come through. When do they come through? Anywhere between 14 and 22 months of age. I discovered this with my first child because I got to know a male nurse who was in charge of the malabsorption syndrome ward in Camperdown Children's Hospital, the biggest children's hospital in Australia. He said this ward is full of babies with malabsorption syndrome in the gut because they're given starch too early. I was 23. That was a long time ago. And so that influenced the way I fed my children. My son James, he's 45 today, looks like a bodybuilder, master builder, is his trade. He's an artist, he's a musician, and he ate no food till he was 16 months old. Well, it obviously didn't harm him. And yet mothers are told, and they make the decision to do it through fear. God said in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, "I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love and a sound mind." You know what a sound mind does? It considers the pros and the cons. And so when you're told something that you're not sure of, you know the best thing to say is, "Thank you so much for your advice." Remember, smile like a Cheshire cat. "I'll seriously consider what you've told me," and leave. Don't go back. There's been a death and no one attended the funeral. No one knew he died. It was the death of common sense. Isn't that true? When should a baby feed? When they can sit. When they can do it themselves and when they have teeth. Doesn't that make sense? And the first food isn't a whole plate of roast beef, is it? Or lentils. No, a piece of cucumber, a piece of celery, a piece of apple. Won't they choke? No, they'll just gag and it'll always pop back out. Do you know who chokes? Babies that have never had crunchy food. And they find that all they ever get is slop, so they don't learn to chew. And then finally they're given something hard. They don't know how to chew. It goes down the throat and they're silent. That's choking. In fact, there are dentists that are saying people are having gum and teeth problems because they were given too much soft food. So when a little one, 2-year-old, it's nearly breakfast and he wants something, give him a whole apple. Don't peel it. Don't core it. He'll work it out. And it'll be good for his gums, yeah? And you know what? He feels accomplished because he's handled a whole apple all by himself. This, what I have told you, is something that's not often known. But people are having gut problems today because they were fed too much starch as babies. And women are told you must give your baby rice cereal or some sort of cereal 4 to 6 months of age because there's not enough iron in the breast milk in the second 6 months of age. I have a question. Did God make a mistake? God never makes mistakes. The milk is perfect when the baby's 1 week old. The milk is perfect when it's 6 months old. The milk is perfect when it's 1 year old. Do you know why God puts less iron in the second 6 months? Because the baby's requirements are less. And the princes come along and say, there's not enough. No. It is your God-given right to be the one that chooses how you feed your baby. Don't let anyone take that away from you. And we need to make decisions on information. So when God says, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind considers all the options. So that's what happens in the mouth. So please spend time to allow your food to stay in the mouth so the enzymes can work. And now we come down through a little gateway, it's a double-layered gateway, into the stomach. It's called the cardiac sphincter. Cardiac meaning heart. Now that's not heart, but it is so close to the heart muscle, that's why it's called the cardiac sphincter. And the cardiac sphincter is designed to stop what's in the stomach coming up, because in the stomach it is an acid environment. If someone says to me, I've got a very acid stomach, I say, praise God, it should be. Dogs have 10 times the hydrochloric acid that we have, and they don't get heartburn and they don't get stomach ulcers. We need stomach acid to break our protein down, as you will see. So why does the acid come up? That's a very good question, because it shouldn't come up. Is it because the person's eating all day long, little by little by little, which is overusing that cardiac sphincter? Is it because they're having their largest meal at the end of the day, and then when they lie down, gravity causes the food to push up against that cardiac sphincter, weakening it? Is it because their abdominal muscles are weak? You see, that cardiac sphincter sits in the middle of our diaphragm, and you know your diaphragm goes like this, and your diaphragm is connected to your abdominal muscles. And if the abdominal muscles are weak, the cardiac sphincter is going to be weak. So it's time to implement daily exercises, especially push-ups. Ladies, if you can't do push-ups, do them on the wall. And as your core muscles and your shoulders and arms get stronger, you can start to do ladies' push-ups on the wall, on the floor. Do it for your cardiac sphincter. It'll strengthen it because it is a muscle. The muscles can be weakened and muscles can be strengthened. When someone comes to us with reflux or GERD or heartburn, we give them breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper. When we lay down to sleep, our stomach wants to sleep too. We also give them magnesium because magnesium is a muscle relaxant. And when that little cardiac sphincter is relaxed, it's closed. When it tightens, it opens. Because when we swallow, that swallowing act closes our trachea, opens our esophagus, so the food's going down the right tube. Because you know there are 2 tubes coming down here. And as we swallow, the muscles in our esophagus, they start to contract, and as they contract, the cardiac sphincter opens and the food goes into the stomach. If someone's stressed out, the muscles can tighten and that little sphincter can open. So stress can also be a contributing factor. Now we're coming into the stomach, which is a very acid environment. And the lining of the stomach looks like this. And these folds have gastric glands. And these gastric glands that line the folds of the stomach, 2/3 of them release mucus. And that mucus is designed to give a thick mucosa wall to the lining of the stomach. Because down here is released hydrochloric acid, down here is released pepsinogen, and if one drop of hydrochloric acid touches your skin, it'll burn a hole in your skin. So you can see God put a nice thick mucosa wall to protect the stomach lining. And hydrochloric acid is only released when we smell, look, start to chew, and then the enzymes are released. And when hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen unite, that releases pepsin. And pepsin is the protein breaker down. So the food is protein, and protein is broken down by pepsin. That's the only thing, that's the only food that is broken down in the stomach. That's why we need an acid stomach. I've never met anyone with too much acid in their stomach. If someone says, I've got too much acid, and I say, how do you know? And they say, it keeps coming up. Well, it's not the acid, it's the gate. Fix the gate. We had one guest come and her whole esophagus was ulcerated because the acid was coming up so much. There's a lovely herb called slippery elm. Slippery elm is the powdered bark of the slippery elm tree, and you put hot water with it, it goes a little thick and it coats and soothes. And that's what we gave her every night before bed to help to heal that esophagus. Plus, we also worked at closing this little valve. Plus, we also worked at increasing her digestive enzymes, increasing her hydrochloric acid. Many people have low hydrochloric acid because they drink with their meals. Yes, it's important to drink approximately 2 litres of water a day, but we should stop half an hour before the meal and resume an hour and a half after the meal. If you're thirsty after the meal, by all means have a mouthful or two. That's not going to dilute it too much. But next meal, make sure you're well hydrated before you sit to eat your meal. Now, they've always told us, the princes that is, that we should be eating every 2 hours, is that right? We should graze. Oh, well, they've changed their mind, have you noticed? When are they going to get it? That's why you're the doctor. If it works, do it. We had a lady come and she said to me, Barbara, I don't know how I'm going to go here. I have a bag with me all day long and I nibble all day long. Otherwise I get low blood sugar. I said, oh. Let's see how you go. Do you know what I noticed with this lady? She wasn't drinking much water. And I think if you're eating all day long, when are you going to drink your water? So you can Google this and have a look at it. Time-restricted eating. Time-restricted eating is eating twice, 6 hours apart in a 24-hour period. And they're now showing that this helps blood sugar levels much better. Because as you will see as we go through our gastrointestinal tract, the food is absorbed down here. So even when your stomach's empty, you're still getting nutrients going into your blood, which is carrying it to your cell. Time-restricted eating, they suggest, is eating a meal maybe 7 in the morning. But the problem is eating 7 in the morning, you might then eat at 1 and then you might be hungry at the end of the day. So what a lot of people do is they'll have their main meal at 9 and then another meal, say, at 3. But maybe if you're working, that doesn't really work. Some people start work very early, so they'll have breakfast at 6:30. Maybe dairy farmers, they're starting very early. And then they'll need a meal at 11:30 or 12. As long as the last meal is very light. So it actually has to be what works with you. But every diabetic that comes to our retreat, we give them breakfast at 7:30, we give them a main meal at 1:30, and then we give a thin soup at night. And we find within 48 hours they're having to reduce their medication because blood sugar levels are balancing out. So we've been doing that for years, and I found it very interesting with the time-restricted eating. That's what they are finding. The researchers are finding amazing weight loss, people are sleeping better, mental problems are starting to ease, even cancer's getting relief, all because they're just eating twice a day. So twice, or with some cases maybe 3, as long as the last meal of the day is the lightest meal of the day. Because the fact is, digestion takes 3.5 to 4 hours, unless of course it's a meal of watermelon. That'll be about an hour and a half. But when it's a balanced diet, so what's a balanced diet? A balanced diet is high fibre. A balanced diet is generous proteins. For me, my proteins come in the form of beans, so lentils, chickpeas, lima beans, black-eyed beans. There's so many beans. My first cookbook, when I was about 25, was an Indian cookbook. They know how to make beans. And healthy fats. The healthy fats are the unadulterated fats. Coconut and your olive are probably the very best. So these 3 foods keep the food in the stomach longer, allowing you to go 5 to 6 hours between the meal. Then your body loves a rest of approximately 1 hour, and that allows all the digestive enzymes to be replaced, ready for the next meal. When I was in Spain last year, I was in the northern part of southern Spain at an area called Andalusia, and I stayed with a family that had 5 children. They had a little baby, they had a little 18-month, and then a 4-year-old, then I think a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old. All of those children ate 2 meals a day. And a lot of people don't think that is possible. They had their main meal about 8:39, and then they had another meal about 3. It can happen. You probably notice when children say they're starving, they're usually bored. Or it could be that they're dehydrated. Then we come out of the stomach through the pyloric sphincter into the duodenum. And a whole lot of things are happening in the duodenum. And the duodenum is an alkaline environment. So in the duodenum we have the liver. And the liver has the gallbladder underneath. And the gallbladder is a reservoir for bile. So some people say, is it true I can't digest fats anymore because my gallbladder's gone? I said, no, because it's your liver that makes bile. And bile is the enzyme that breaks down unsaturated fat. The saturated fat begins in the mouth, but the unsaturated fat, it begins when the food comes into the first part of the small intestine, which is the duodenum. So the liver releases bile, which breaks down unsaturated fat. But notice in my illustration here that we've got the pancreas that's also releasing into the duodenum. The pancreas releases sodium bicarbonate. And the reason that it releases sodium bicarbonate is because the duodenum is an alkaline environment, and it helps to alkalize as it comes into that environment. But the pancreas, it releases pancreatic lipase. Lipase is the enzyme that breaks down fats. Remember, lingual lipase broke down the saturated fat, but pancreatic lipase, it further breaks down the unsaturated fat. The pancreas also releases pancreatic amylase. And pancreatic amylase finalises starch digestion. Starch digestion began in the mouth under the action of the salivary amylase, ptyalin. And then it's finalised in the duodenum under the action of pancreatic amylase. The pancreas also releases, and I call them the trypsin brothers. It's chymotrypsin and trypsin. So just to make it a little bit easier, we'll call it the trypsin brothers. So the trypsin brothers, they finalise protein digestion. Now remember where protein digestion began? It began in the stomach under the action of pepsin. And the trypsin brothers, they finalise protein digestion in the first part of the small intestine, which is the duodenum. Now this also explains why most of our nutrients, they're absorbed in the first part of the small intestine. So by the time it's about halfway down the small intestine, all your nutrients are absorbed. The only thing left is the insoluble fibre. And fruits and vegetables are very high in insoluble fibre. And that insoluble fibre is important, as you will see as we get to the colon. So, students, which organ is the main organ of digestion? It's the pancreas. I used to think all the food was broken down in the stomach, but not so. Not so. And you'll notice if someone has pancreatitis, cancer of the pancreas, often they pass very quickly because they die from malnutrition. So if someone has pancreatitis or cancer of the pancreas, it's vital that they get digestive enzymes to help with the finalisation of the digestion of these nutrients. And now we come to the grand finale of digestion. The small intestine is lined with villi. And these villi, in the middle, they have a lacteal, but all over the villi is the blood capillary network. Remember I said anything that goes into our gastrointestinal tract is not part of us until it gets broken down to tiny little substances and then absorbed into the blood. But lining the small intestine is a thick turf wall. And this thick turf wall is made up of Lactobacillus acidophilus bifidus bacterium. They're the two main ones. There are many others. It's called our microbiome, or our healthy or our friendly bacteria. Did you know that when we were in our mother's utero, we had no bacteria in our gut? Our gut was sterile. And when we were born, we were literally showered with our mother's microorganisms. And colostrum is vital in those first 3 days. Milk doesn't come into the mother's breast for 3 days. What she has got is a thick yellowy substance called colostrum. And that's an incredibly important part of the building up of the baby's immune system. So these microbiome, these little microorganisms, and did you know that there are 10 times more microorganisms in the body than anywhere than cell? So we've got 100 trillion cells in the body. I'm sorry, I'm not a good mathematician, but that's a lot. So we've got 10 times more microorganisms than cells, and there are 10 times more microorganisms in our gastrointestinal tract than anywhere else in the body. And they play a very important part in the finalising and the release of foods into the blood. They are responsible for the final breakdown. But don't all these enzymes break our food down? Well, what they help to release is the B vitamins from our food. These microorganisms are also responsible for the absorption of our nutrients into the gut from the blood. I think there's an S there. And these microorganisms also protect. They protect the blood from any harmful pathogens that might be in the gut. And they also nourish the cells that line the walls of the gut. No wonder Hippocrates said all disease begins in the gut. Unfortunately today, these microorganisms are getting killed off. Antibiotics does a good job at killing them off. I'm not against antibiotics, but most people should only have 1 or 2 courses in their whole lifetime. They should be kept as life-saving. And sadly today, antibiotics are causing more problems than they just about cured. Our body was designed to heal itself. Also, cholesterol-lowering medication can knock it back. Also, long-term painkiller use can knock it back. And so once the microorganisms have been compromised, We've now lost the final breakdown, our B vitamins. We've lost the ability to effectively absorb. We've lost the ability to protect our blood against harmful pathogens. We've also stopped the nourishment that these little cells require. What feeds our microorganisms is prebiotics. So what's a prebiotic? Basically, a prebiotic comes from the fibre of vegetables and fruit. So if you're eating good amounts of vegetables and fruit, and I'm certainly enjoying your few Joas at the moment, when you're eating a nice amount of vegetables and fruit, that insoluble fibre is helping to feed those microorganisms. Wherever I travel in the world, I find that traditionally the countries had some sort of cultured food as part of their traditional diet. So in Germany, sauerkraut, those sourdough breads, also yogurts, kefirs, misos through Asia, and all of those cultured foods, because they're cultured foods, they create the Lactobacillus acidophilus bifidus bacterium, and that helps to nourish and replace that gut flora. But if someone's been on antibiotics or long-term painkiller or the cholesterol-lowering medications, it's important for them to take a probiotic 3/4 of an hour before breakfast to help build up their good gut flora. Now we're coming down out of the small intestine into the large intestine, and there is a double-layered valve there also, and that's the ileocecal valve. And that valve's there so that nothing from the large intestine will go back into the small intestine. But you can see that there's a little organ there called the appendix, and you know God doesn't make mistakes. The appendix is a very important little organ, and the appendix has two main roles. It's called the colon's oil can because it lubricates the contents of the colon. It also releases antibacterial fluid if necessary. When vegetables break down, they ferment. When meat breaks down, it putrefies. So if someone's on a high meat diet, eating a lot of sugar, which will just feed the putrefaction process, when it comes out of here, it can be fairly toxic. And the appendix has got to work hard to release that antibacterial fluid. For people that choose to eat meat, they must eat a lot of vegetables so that the transit time should be as quick as possible. Transit time from the mouth to the other end should be no longer than 24 hours, ideally about 16 hours. Dr. Kellogg said 3 intakes of food a day should equal 3 evacuations a day. Many people that eat 3 meals a day go once a day and think they're going well, but not so. And if you notice, the colon, if you tell it to go, it won't, and if you tell it to stop, it won't. It's got a mind of its own. It needs to be swept every day. That's what that insoluble fibre does. It needs to be exercised every day. That's why we should exercise. And those Pilates exercise core strengthening, they're very good at massaging the colon. The colon also needs you to drink adequate water because one of the main functions of the colon is to take water out so stools are formed. So if we're not drinking adequate water, more water gets taken out than should be, and then we're left with rabbit pellets and cement. So I'd like to explain this little red muscle that I've drawn here. And we're going to have a look at someone doing their daily evacuation, and they're sitting on the throne. And when that person sits on the throne, this little muscle that's called puborectalis, which is right at the end of the colon, and we're so glad it's there because if you feel to go and you can't, you can hold it. The problem is when people use that every single day, then the colon gets into the habit of not going when it should. But if someone goes to Bed Bath & Beyond, I don't know if you have those shops, they sell squatty potties. And it's a little stool that sits in front of the throne, and it allows the person to mimic the squatting position. And when the squatting position is mimicked, then puborectalis relaxes, and when puborectalis relaxes, that allows the colon to open up wide, and so the contents can pass with the greatest of ease. That's why this man's very happy. and this one isn't. And I've been in many Asian countries, and sometimes I go into their toilets and it's a hole in the ground. Traditionally, people have most commonly squatted to do their daily evacuations. And you can buy a little stool to put in front, and it makes the daily evacuation a lot easier. It takes a lot of pressure off the anus, so if there are hemorrhoids, it can help to ease them, and it can also help to prevent hemorrhoids. What if if you're doing everything right and the colon's still not going as much as it should? There's a little drink that you can make. You can pour this on your breakfast, 1/3 of a cup of chia seeds, and mix it in a glass jar with 3 cups of, it can be water, could be organic soy milk, it could be fruit juice. It'll make a soft gel. And all the person has to do is have 1/2 cup of that over their breakfast or into their smoothie. It takes about 10 minutes to gel, and that does a wonderful job at stimulating and being very soothing and cleaning out the colon and stimulating peristalsis. What if the problem is too much? What if the problem is the person's got irritable bowel, Crohn's disease or colitis? There are foods that must stop because they act like irritants to the gut if there's inflammation, which is dairy and wheat, oats, peanuts and refined sugar. My sons, they have oats for breakfast every day and love it, but they have no gut problems. If there is a gut problem, these foods should be stopped. And there is a herb called slippery-elm, and slippery-elm coats, soothes and heals the lining of the gut. And we have seen many people heal from irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, colitis by ceasing these foods, taking the slippery-elm maybe 4 times a day, and we find them heal. When people have these problems, they're often told they've got an autoimmune disease. I don't believe in autoimmune diseases because there's a reason. There's a reason for it, and that's why it's important to look at the history and find out where this started. But the good news is, no matter what the cause, no matter what the reason, if these foods are stopped and the slippery-elm is taken, we see the gut heal. And that's the good news, because we live in a body with an inbuilt ability to heal itself.